Hello friends, so today's video is going to be a list of some 2022 book releases that I'm really excited about. I think these sound absolutely phenomenal. All of them, with the exception of one book, are fantasy, and I'm actually only going from January through March. I just like doing anticipated releases seasonally. One, it allows me to focus on more books per season to let you know about, but then also there's always new books being added as the year progresses that are going to be coming out, more release dates, I should say, being added. So I just find that this is the most beneficial for me to help me keep track and then hopefully to let you know about as many as possible. So I'm actually breaking this up into two videos because there's 18 books that I want to mention. I have a mix of young adult and adult, a little bit more adult fantasy this time around. And I always like to look on the website NetGalley to see if these are available for request. If you don't know what NetGalley is, it's a website where you can request ARCs or advanced reader copies. So you can try to get a digital copy early and read the book in advance, and then you can try to review the book to help, in general, new books do a little bit better, get some hype for the book. So if there's any of these that you're interested in, all but one are available on NetGalley, and I'll mention which one isn't when we get to that one. Just because you request something on NetGalley does not guarantee that you will get it, but I still think it's fun to know that basically all of these are available if you yourself are someone who does a lot of reviewing. I am going to go in order of the current projected release date. I'll have information for all of these things in the description bar down below if you'd like to reference it and come back to it. But also, I'm going to have them in order by release date, so we're going to go through up until about 2 weeks into February in today's video, and then the next one will go from there through the end of March. Kicking off the list, we have Ivory Key. This one looks to be projected for a January 4th release, so very soon. I believe it is book one in a duology, and I believe it's also young adult. And the description for this one says, magic, a prized resource, is the only thing between peace and war. When magic runs out, four estranged royal siblings must find a new source before their country is swallowed by invading forces. I believe this is also a debut author, which is another reason why I really like to try and keep my eyes peeled for these new releases, because it's so hard for new authors that don't currently have name recognition to get their name out there. So this one, I believe, first in duology, debut, young adult, and I think it sounds really cool. The cover is very pretty. It reminds me of when I was a kid, those like kaleidoscope little things. Did you ever do those where you spin it? Does anyone know what I'm talking about? 1 week after that, we have The Amber Crown. This is an adult fantasy story. It says, in this new epic fantasy, three societal outcasts must work together to fulfill the orders of a dead king's ghost or risk their nation falling to a tyrant king. And then continuing on a little bit more, it says, the king is dead, his queen is missing. On the Amber Coast, the usurper king is driving Zivonia, which is a cool name, to the brink of war. A dangerous magical power is rising up in Biela Miastro. I don't know any of these. I'm sorry, I'm probably saying it so wrong. And the only people who can set things right are a failed bodyguard, a landstrider witch, and the assassin who set off the whole sorry chain of events. I think that sounds so cool. At the end of the synopsis, it says, can these three discover the real villain, find the queen, and set the rightful king on the throne before the country is overcome? Also, this is, I know this isn't a video about covers, but this cover, it's kind of got the generic fantasy vibes as far as there's a crown, right? But I really like the way it's done. I think that the colors are really interesting. It definitely gets my attention. I know that we like to make fun of these generic fantasy covers, but they kind of work. Speaking of amazing covers, also projected for January 11th, we have the Daughter of the Moon the Daughter of the Moon Goddess, which is once again supposed to be book one in a duology. I'm really liking that we're seeing more duologies coming out, because for so long, trilogies seem to be the staple in fantasy, so I like that we're getting two. But either way, jumping into the description for this one, it says, a captivating debut, another debut, fantasy inspired by the legend of Chang'e, the Chinese moon goddess, in which a young woman's quest to free her mother pits her against the most powerful immortal in the realm. Growing up on the moon, Xingyan is accustomed to solitude, unaware that she is being hidden from the feared celestial emperor who exiled her mother for stealing his elixir of immortality. But when Xingyan's magic flares and her existence is discovered, she is forced to flee her home, leaving her mother behind. kind. Alone, powerless, and afraid, she makes her way to the Celestial Kingdom, a land of wonder and secrets. Disguising her identity, she seizes an opportunity to learn alongside the Emperor's son, mastering archery and magic, even as passion flames between her and the prince. To save her mother, Xingyan embarks on a perilous quest, confronting legendary creatures. That's exciting. I always love that. And vicious enemies across the earth and skies. But when treachery looms and forbidden magic threatens the kingdom, she must challenge the ruthless celestial emperor for her dream, striking a dangerous bargain in which she is torn between losing all she loves or plunging the realm into chaos. Projected for January 18th, we have Engines of Empire. This is by Orbit Books, and I gotta say, a lot of the adult fantasy on these two lists are from Orbit. So I almost could have made a whole separate video about anticipated Orbit releases. But either way, this one sounds so cool. It has basically no ratings thus far. A lot of times, because things are available to people via NetGalley and ARCs and things like that, you will see some buzz ahead of time, and this one doesn't look to have a lot, but it sounds really cool. The synopsis is a little long. It says, this epic fantasy tells the tales of clashing guilds, magic-fueled machines, intrigue and revolution, and the one family that stands between an empire's salvation or destruction. The nation of Torwin is run on the power of industry, and industry is run by the guilds. Chief among them are the Hawkspurs, and their responsibility is to keep the gears of the empire turning. It's exactly why matriarch Rosamund Hawkspur sends each of her heirs to the far reaches of the nation. Connell, the eldest son, is sent to the distant frontier to earn his stripes in the military. It is here that he faces a threat he could never have seen coming, the first rumblings of revolution. Pyretta's sorcerous connection to the magical resource of Pyre Stone that fuels the Empire's machines makes her a perfect heir in theory. While Tyretta hopes that she might shirk her responsibilities during one of her journeys to Torwin's most important Pyre Stone mines, she instead finds the dark horrors of industry that the Empire would prefer to keep hidden. The youngest, Fulren, is a talented artificer and finds himself acting as consort to a foreign emissary. Soon after, he is framed for a crime he never committed, a crime that could start a war. As each of the Hawkspurs grapple with the many threats that face the nation within and without, they must finally prove themselves worthy or their empire will fall apart. I'm already pumped because of the emphasis on machines and industry. I think we don't see a whole lot of that in fantasy, so that alone is exciting, but then having these different family members that have so much influence or maybe not enough influence, I just think that it sounds incredible. I'm really excited. It doesn't sound like anything really I've heard of or that is out right now. I'm excited. On repeat. Excited. Also scheduled for the 18th, we have Servant Mage, and the description says, Valiant is a lamplighter able to provide illumination through magic. A group of rebel monarchists free her from indentured servitude and take her on a journey to rescue trapped compatriots from an underground complex of mines. Along the way, they get caught up in a conspiracy to kill the latest royal child and wipe out the monarchists' movement for good, but Valiant has more than just her lamplighting skills up her sleeve. In Kate Elliott's Servant Mage, a lowly fire mage finds herself entangled in an empire-spanning conspiracy on her way to discovering her true power. Also projected for the 18th, and the only one that is not available from NetGalley, would be the Temple of No God, or at least I didn't see it on NetGalley. There's a different book of that same name, but I don't think it's associated in any way. So this is actually a companion story to Hall of Smoke, which is this kind of somewhat Norse-inspired, influenced fantasy story about a woman dealing with grief and wondering if her actions influenced the negative events that occur throughout the book. And this particular story is listed on Goodreads as a sequel because it has the series name and it says number 2. But the author has specified that you do not have to read the first book. This is not a direct sequel. While it does follow characters from the first book, it's not actually required that you read the other book, Hall of Smoke. The following week, on the 25th, we have Red Palace, which seems to actually be historical fiction, not fantasy. I could be wrong, maybe there will be, but for now, I'm gonna say it's historical fiction. It sounds fantastic. I'm really excited. The cover, very intriguing looking. And it says, to enter the palace means to walk a path stained in blood. Korea, 1758, there are few options available to illegitimate daughters in the capital city, but through hard work and study, 18-year-old Hyein has earned a position as a palace nurse. All she wants is to keep her head down, do a good job, and perhaps finally win her estranged father's approval. But Hyein is suddenly thrust into the dark and dangerous world of court politics when someone murders 4 women women in a single night, and the prime suspect is Haeyun's closest friend and mentor. Determined to prove her beloved teacher's innocence, Haeyun launches her own secret investigation. In her hunt for the truth, she encounters Injin, a young police inspector also searching for the killer. When evidence begins to point to the crown prince himself as the murderer, they must work together to search the darkest corners of the palace to uncover the deadly secrets behind the bloodshed. Getting now into February in the very first week, with February 1st, we have Castles in Their Bones. So this is written by Laura Sebastian, who wrote the Ash Princess trilogy. And then she wrote Half Sick of Shadows, which is a King Arthur retelling from the Lady of Shalot's perspective. And I actually ended up not completing that story, not because I thought it was poorly written or anything. It's kind of a more thematic type of book, somewhat atmospheric as well. And it's the kind of story I think that if you're not personally connecting to it, the plot isn't necessarily going to be what keeps you going, because you sort of know where it's going anyway, since it's a retelling. Anywho, so I had not completed that one, but I find the Ash Princess trilogy very, very entertaining. So I'm just going to summarize the synopsis really quick. So the first sentence, it says that there are 3 princesses destined for seduction, conquest, and the crown, but they are being married off. They're triplets, and they're being married off, but kind of with ulterior motives. It says they've been trained since birth in the arts of deception, seduction, and violence with a singular goal to bring down monarchies, and their marriages are merely the first stage of their mother's grand vision, which is, I think, sounds kind of cool. I mean, I think it's kind of taking some tropes that we're accustomed to and then flipping them on their head. I think it sounds like a good old time. Projected for February 15th, we have Age of Ash. This is the last book on today's list, and like I said, I will be doing a part 2 where I go over some more adult and young adult fantasy releases. So this particular one, it says that it follows a character named Alice. When her brother is murdered, a petty thief from the slums of Long Hill sets out to discover who killed him and why. But the more she discovers about him, the more she learns about herself, and the truths she finds are more dangerous than knives. Swept up in an intrigue as deep as the roots of Kithamar, where the secrets of the lowest born can sometimes topple thrones, the story Alice chooses will have the power to change everything. It's a little vague, and I definitely think that some of the things mentioned in the synopsis sound like things we've seen before, but ultimately I still think that this is a very well-known author who has written established works that are praised pretty consistently. So I'm definitely interested in giving something by them a try. I've yet to read something by this author, though I really have wanted to for a while. And I think that this is one of those situations, we'll see when it comes out and I pick it up, where the synopsis can only tell you so much because there's so much more to the story. So it seems like they just kind of have the buzzwords, right? They have intrigue, petty thief, murder. They've got all those different things thrown in there, but there's nothing that sparks like, oh wow, that sounds so unique. The same way something like Engines of Empire did. That one sounds so unique, where this one, I think it's kind of more classic fantasy, but you're going to have to dive into the story to see what makes it shine, what makes it unique. We'll find out though. Be on the lookout for part 2, because I'm definitely really excited about so many of those as well, and I think a lot of you will find them really interesting. Let me know what your anticipated book releases are from January to March. If you want to branch out, let me know some anticipated releases for the rest of the year. Let me know that as well. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.